Yes, guys, you know what time it is. It's your boy David at the Irish Hotspot, Ireland's number one Spurs fan, bringing you the player ratings after yesterday's shocking 1-0 defeat to Burnley. I mean, it's the only thing I can really say about it. It's not good enough from all levels. And of course, we are joined by co-host Jack and Nicky to get us through the player ratings today. Jack, how are you keeping, my man?
To be honest, Dave, probably not as good as I'd like to be. Still a bit kind of torn down, a bit kind of let down, a bit kind of just, I don't know, still trying to make sense of that defeat. Of course, we'll have a Kaneki answer me to make a lot of sense of, things tonight, Dave. But I don't know. Yeah, just a lot of questions more than answers, and definitely kind of left in a bit more of a rut than I expected after that result.
No, same here. Same here. Look, we'll speak a little bit on yesterday's result, Jack. I mean, look, for me, my quick thoughts on it is, look, not everything hinges on the guy, but as soon as Harry Winks came on at halftime, I think every Spurs fan knew exactly what was going to happen. It opened up the game, Jack. And, it made it more end-to-end, which was a game we didn't need. When Bentancur was in there in the first half, we were controlling a bit of possession, keeping the possession, and it wasn't as end-to-end. But look,
I think you could just make the argument, Dave. You could just make the argument that we played better in the first half than we did in the second half. Burnley played better in the second half than they did in the first half. And why, maybe what changed really, maybe what's the big change that you would point to is Harry Winks going on for Bentancur. And all of a sudden, Burnley start playing better in the second half. They get a few more chances, as well as they just have a bit more of the ball, kind of felt like, in that sort of game. And then you do kind of look at it as well, where the first half, kind of everybody kind of felt like, the game's sort of in control. We created chances, but, it's a tough game against Burnley. We'll eventually break them down, because it felt like they weren't doing anything in the first half. So eventually we would just kind of break them down. But the moment Harry Winks came on, I don't know, they just got Burnley back into the game. And I don't know. I just don't think you can make the argument we played better in the second half. I think there was actually a very different performance in the second half than there was in the first.
No, 100%. And look, for me, I think that was the biggest trouble in midfield from the midfield area yesterday. Like, even when the guy came on, it was slow, it was lethargic. There was no urgency in what he was doing. He's standing there taking 4 or 5 touches, looking at a player and then passing it to him. You got to be a lot sharper on the ball. But look, that could be said all around for the team yesterday. You look at some of the other players. I mean, for me, just looking at the game yesterday, although we did create a couple of chances, we didn't create as many as we would have liked at the end there. We're nowhere near kind of real quality chances. But I think the reason for that being is everything was a bit slow and lethargic. Outside of Kane, Son and Kulu, I just felt everybody else was kind of slowing the game down. There was no real runners. There was no zip on the passes. It was all very slow. It was all in front of Burnley. When you're playing teams like Burnley, and I've seen it yesterday, Kane and Son offered themselves in behind a couple of times, even Kulu at one stage. But we didn't have the players who wanted to take that risk, to play that ball. They didn't want to be the one to lose that ball, so they just moved on to the next guy. He looks up, same thing. I'm not taking the risk. Moves it on to the next guy. It was just going left to right for ages. You can't be doing that. You need players that are going to take risks. In order to win games, you have to take risks. That's what it's all about. You win games by taking risks, and you have to go and do that. You look at maybe, I would say, especially from the left-hand side. We'll get on to the right-hand side when we get into the player ratings. Nothing. You need Session. He needs to get on that ball. He needs to be able to make something happen. It was crying out for someone yesterday just to kind of grab the game by the scruff of the neck, make something happen. Even I was surprised with the conditions and the weather. Get shots in at the keeper. It's a difficult day for handling. It's a difficult day for goalkeeping. Test them out. No one wanted to take that responsibility on either. Look, defensively, we'll get on to the set pieces in a while when we touch on Romero. That is ultimately, where Burnley got the best of their chances from. But it was just like we had no one that really wanted to step up yesterday and take that game by the scruff of the neck and really make something happen. And I think that's what disappoints me most. But then I also looking at, I knew coming into this game that this team were going to be physically and mentally exhausted from the City game, from what they put into it. It is not easy to be under the cosh for 90 minutes and be concentrating on your breakaway plays and your defence and all the running everyone was doing, and then get out there on a Wednesday night and replicate that. So then you're looking at players that are not in the starting 11 come in, Show us what you can do. Affect the game. Show Conte why you're knocking on the first 11 door. And I didn't see that yesterday either. Like a bar regular maybe coming back in and Skip getting back to fitness. You would say, okay, you have an extra player there off the bench where you can look at to come in and affect the game. But we just don't have them sort of players. It was really evident yesterday. No one wanted to take that responsibility. No one wanted to take that risk of losing the ball, asking questions in behind. It was just very disappointing all around, I thought.
No, I think it was. From pretty much mostly everyone, it was pretty disappointing. Yet again, though, Dave, to maybe test against that, I actually thought there were a few performances out there that actually weren't as bad as maybe people would like to think.
Yeah.
I actually think there are some players out there that, to a degree, could even hold their head. Could you say hold their head high? I don't even know. Like, I think after any loss like that, you certainly can't, but certainly could look at their own performances and feel like, maybe they definitely put their foot forward and definitely tried to, help the team win. And I think there are a few players in this, player ratings that we're about to do, Dave, that I think fall into that category. But let's greet maybe a bit of the Harris Army first before we break it down here. And Vince Vega saying, good luck to lads tonight on this show. How can you all rehash it, leave yesterday to yesterday and stop torturing yourselves all? We're going to go right through it, my man. But big up also as well.
You know what? Just on that, honestly, yesterday after the game, I sat here and thought about it long and hard yesterday about maybe taking a little break, or taking a mini break, taking a break to the end of the season, because it is getting to the point where it's ultimately just getting frustrating. Even within the fan base, it's like every time we lose, it's all about back the manager. I mean, we're in the, and it just brings toxicity for me. We're in the middle of the transfer window's closed, and anyone that thought we could do a whole rebuild in the January transfer window, I get why you're frustrated. And after every loss, it's like, this is what happens when you don't back the manager and everything else. But just deal with the here and now. Let's deal with what's going on now. Focus on what we can do now going forward to try and improve this situation without talking about players and backing and stuff like that, because there's nothing you can do when you're not in the window. And then compiled by the team's performances, the way it's so up and down, Conte's words yesterday just really got to me, But look, I made the decision. I'm never going to quit.
Big up Vince Vega, though. Big up, my man. Kane the Long Shot says, I wish I could say shocking, but in truth was predictable. I said we'd beat City and lose to Burnley. While I agree with him, not happy about Conte's remarks. Wrong time and place. Focus should be Leeds. I think that's pretty well put, actually, Kane the Long Shot. Big yourself up, though, my man.
Big up,
Buzzard Chab is in the building. Thoughts with Ukraine, but we are going to just focus on football at the end of the day. We aren't a politics channel, but big up Buzzard Chubb as well. Sue Smith in the building, absolute diamond, as well as Brian Diggle always says, leave you out, Enoch out, Harris Army. Big up Sue. John O's in the building saying, heat of the moment remarks from Conte, not surprising. He was so angry. From now on, Leeds is the focus. I'm with you.
Yeah, John. John, my man, everyone tune back in here at 9:30 tonight, where we'll actually be breaking down Conte's quotes and everything else. So 9:30 tonight, that is.
I'll make a banner for it, maybe, Dave. How about you take maybe the comments if you like?
Yeah. DG says, big up, DG, fellow American there, Jacko. So he is big up, my man. Hope you're keeping well. We also have Welsh Gal says, big up, lads and ladies. Harris Army and the Flat Cap Army, big up, Welsh Gal. I hope you're keeping well. Neil Hartley says, David taking a leaf out of Simon Ben's latest book. Maybe. B is in the house. He says, we here start it up. Cody Mack says, we're in a mess. That we are, my man. Leon says, what's up, lads? Well, what can we say? Nothing but big up yourselves. I'm just deflated today, my man. Just deflated. The regular says, all players are a 0. Thank you. Darren Denton says session on 3, and I'm being kind, lol. Yeah, look, we're 100%. We're going to break down these players. Paul Gregory says raving to the intro again makes me forget how bad we are. Yeah, that is true. It's 4 minutes of escapism, my man. Joseph says nobody should be getting over a 5, and there should be a few zeros or minuses. We could be in for a bit of trouble here today. Old Soul says hope Harry and the recent son can convince Conte to stick it out. Yeah, look, I hope so. We'll wait and see. Who else have we got here? The regular says thoughts and prayers. Oh, yeah, 100%, my man, 100%. Derek Hutchison says, good afternoon, David and Jack. Let's go again at Leeds on Saturday. Come on, you Spurs. And yeah, it's all we can do is just pick ourselves up, dust ourselves down, and go again, my man. until the end of the season. SOF says, Levy's tried to get the Champions League final at the stadium, yet has no interest in financing his own team. Could you imagine the banter if Chelsea, Liverpool, or City win it there? Yeah, that is a fair point. That would actually be crushing, to be honest with you. It really would be. Rifle says, Kane, the long shot, those two were the worst. Eva Man is in the house, says, yeah, Cody, agree. What are we going to do? David is in the house. He says, hi, lads. Looking forward to this show. Great work this week, even though Spurs aren't doing the same. Really appreciate that, David. Legend. Thank you so much, my man. Mick is in the building. He says, sorry, lads, I'm running late. You're not running late, my man.
Mick, never running late, man. You're always early, my man. Always early.
Always on time. RAI says, if Spurs can see one goal with low block team, Spurs can't break them down. It has been struggles for many years. Welsh Gal says, don't be sad, lads. Look, I know. It's just hard, It's just hard off the back of losing to Burnley. I don't care what anyone tells me. I get it. They're a difficult team to sit low block, but we should be beating Burnley every single time we play them. We just should be, and it's just hard to accept. Bold Rule Mazid says, big up Dave and Jack. Last night's result and Conte's interview as Leicester left all of us numb. Yeah, exactly, my man. Great words there.
Big up,
Paul Gregory says, it's all opinions, but we were much better in the second half, I thought. No, that's it. Yeah, that's fair enough. That is fair to say. Jono71 says, I didn't see the game, but I heard we were good in the second half until Winks came on, so you can blame Conte. Yeah, look, again, it's kind of like he's no option but to bring the kid on if Bentancur's injured. Look, I just don't even know where to go anymore, to be honest. Parma says, big up Jacko and David.
Legend.
Big up, my man. I hope you're keeping well. Who else we got? Aaron Dove says, I checked out a couple of the watch-alongs at halftime. People were saying get Winks on. Hindsight is a wonderful thing. Must have been every other watch-along bar ours, lad, then, to be honest with you, because we were sitting here yesterday. Not one of us wanted him on, my man. Not one. Big yourself up, Aaron.
I made a good case for him in the pre-match build-up, that he would start this game, but then he didn't. So, but yeah, big up Aaron though.
Simon Huston says Kane played his heart out against Man City. It was his job interview. Come on now, does everybody forgive his interview? Would you not show your work to get out and progress your career? I'm not even touching on the Harry Kane thing today. Just because we lose, it doesn't mean we should all be back on the Kane bandwagon and all. It just gets boring, to be honest with you. I mean, you can say that, but he had the shot that just dribbled wide yesterday. He came closest to scoring by hitting the crossbar yesterday. And some of the attacks we went on, he played the pass to set us free. So that's all I'm going to say on that. Adam Phillips says Conte rating is a 0 for being an unprofessional John McQueen bitch. No, that is fair enough. That is fair. Who else have we got? Just
Welsh Gal. Have we said hello to Welsh Gal? Big up Welsh Gal, of course. Dtrex Kane in the building as well.
We're down as far as Wayne Bonner. That's who we're at. Dtrex Kane is in the house. Big up Dtrex. Wayne Bonner says, I expect the kind of performance against Leeds that we put in against City. That momentum needs to continue for the FA Cup and the rest of the league campaign. No excuses. No, 100% it does. It really does. But we're going to be playing a game more or less every 3 days. How much of these guys can we keep asking to put out there every 3 days and keep putting in the same intensity? They do need help from others around them, to be fair as well. But I'm definitely on board with Wayne Bonner. I couldn't agree more. We do need to bring that same intensity, my man. Peter Simmons is in the house. Who else have we got? Scott Hyman. He says, we will get there. In Conte, we trust. Keep the faith. Come on, you Spurs. Big yourself up, my man. On your bike, Scott, big up, lads. Pick ourselves up and go again Saturday. Come on, you Spurs. Tottenham till we die. Win, lose, or draw. Yeah, 100%, my man. Absolutely spot on. And we have John Stokes. Evening, Dave and Jack. Back Conte. How can any sane fan say it's Conte's fault? They really are in denial. The problem is and always will be Levy and Enoch. No, that's fair, my man. That's fair. Look, I can understand the Conte things to a certain extent. But look, we'll get into that later on at 9:30, so we will tonight. We will get into that at 9:30 tonight. Ayazi says, why does he need to bring Winks on? Because Bentancur was carrying it up, my man. He couldn't do it in the second half. So he had to come off, brother. The Bolton Duta, big up the Bolton Duta. Really appreciate the support. I hope you are keeping well. Says Conte gave a similar interview after Inter's loss in the Europa Cup final, and Inter weren't as bad. How can same players not show up yesterday? Conte didn't put anyone under the bus, merely suggested maybe he wasn't good enough. Jack, what would you say to the bottom doer?
It's tough. I think there's only one area where he kind of mentioned and did kind of allude to the one thing that I feel like no one can ever argue with about him, Duda. And this is probably the one part where he did kind of put the players under the bus. He did say this club has changed managers, consistently, but has kept the same core group of players. And that is a dig at the players, certainly, considering the results that he's kind of speaking about. And that's something, though, that this channel, as well as probably everybody that has been a Spurs fan for more than 5 years, would certainly agree with. I feel like so he's not wrong about it. But that I would say to bottom due to just quickly with your comment at the end there, I feel like he was making a dig at the players towards the end there. Same time, though, you could really see like where he's coming from. And he also is a bit of a volatile guy. He's had these sort of kind of ridiculous interviews in the past. Perhaps it was due, he's been kind of on his good behavior, been kind of very, kind of tame and, kind of, mellow. It feels like for a lot of our interviews, he's been even kind of laughy and kind of, a bit, easygoing to bottom Duda. But, now it's kind of, he's kind of finally cracked. He's kind of finally broken down, it feels like, and, having his little moment. And, I kind of don't blame him, but to say that, this is the first time Conte has done this, is not the case. He's done this. He has a major history of this. He has a huge track record of this. And then to bottom dude, I just then would ask you, since he has such a track record of it, what would you then say? Does that mean it's kind of just hot air? Does that mean, it's just something that he does? It doesn't really mean very much. Is it just hot air? Or do you think maybe he really is trying to say something and he is like, in some sort of existential situation with Spurs? But do let me know about him, Duda, because like I said, and like you're saying, he has a huge track record of these sort of kind of interviews. And sometimes it is just hot air with him.
No, look, he's an emotional guy. He's the sort of guy, he's a bit like me at times. He wears his heart on his sleeve. But look, he didn't say anything that none of us kind of already knew. You know what I mean? About
a lot of people are saying that in the chat. Yeah.
Huh?
A lot of people are saying that in the chat, saying he, like Chem Mehmet saying he said nothing the fans didn't know.
Yeah, like the thing is, like we've all known this for a while, and maybe it is about time that then players needed to hear that too. Because to be honest with you, how can you have the performance you did against City compared to Burnley? Now, look, I've already said it, and I get it. Physically and mentally, it's a tough challenge to get out there against Burnley and reach the same levels, and you do need more of the squad to help you. But at the same time, it should still be more than enough to be able to put Burnley to bed, to be honest with you. And it's so frustrating. But look, at the same time, Conte can talk about backing and stuff like that. But how long is he in the game? He knows in January transfer window, you're not going to be able to rebuild a full squad. So unless he's playing the long game and is putting things in place so that come the summer, he gets the assurances that he needs, then I don't understand what he's really giving out about either, because he knew what he was getting himself into.
Yeah, he knows what he's getting into, and it seems like
you've got to at least give time until the summer, Jack.
Another thing as well, he should know that it's maybe more the summer. Maybe what it is, Dave, is that he could perhaps. Well, I don't know. We'll discuss this in much more detail, everybody. But perhaps my final thoughts here is he is perhaps having a bit of a tantrum here to a degree. And he does well know that it's more the summer where he's going to be getting exactly what he wants. And it's going to be more next season where he can really try to facilitate and try to get something, on Spurs' record as, improvement, as sort of, progress. But he's probably just a bit upset that he did see top four as a good opportunity. And believe me, it was a good opportunity. And he's seeing it slip through our fingers. And he's just honestly pretty pissed about it. Like a lot of fans are pretty pissed about it. And perhaps that's a way you could look at it. He's kind of just reacting to the loss of top four in kind of a bit of an emotional way. He's not like keeping it to himself. He's actually just kind of letting it all out and perhaps showing his frustration about missing a really golden opportunity. And given the fact that he's such a competitive guy and such a winner, you could say you might not be surprised. But I feel like that's, like I said, it's on the banner down below, everybody. We're going to be discussing a lot of this later tonight on Kinnicky Answer Me. But to bottom Duda, two really huge ones. He's in here with another one. So to bottom Duda, big yourself up, my man. He says, looking at his track record, he is saying he is staying if he is giving such interviews. Usually he walks away silently, and we'll learn about it from Romano. It is a bit nerving, though, that Romano is reporting on it, I will say. But that might also be because he's done it in the English media. In the English media, it's, for everybody to see in the world. I mean, you could hide under the biggest rocks and you'll still somehow find this these type of news, at your doorstep. So that's maybe the only reason Romano's reporting on it. But to bottom Duda, that's my thinking, is that he has a huge track record of complaining about, investment. He has a huge track record of complaining about players. He has a huge track record of complaining about owners. He does it all the time. And maybe that just means sometimes it is just hot air for him and he just has to kind of let it all out. But to bottom Duda, like I said, hopefully you enjoy and hopefully you're around for the show later on, my man. Akiniki answered me, but 2 really huge ones and 2 really generous ones. To bottom Duda, big yourself up, brother.
Yeah, big up the bottom Duda. I really appreciate that, my man. Look, if he walks away, it's not good luck for him. But if he does, it just shows how frustrating things are. Look, looking at the Conte comments, it's kind of like, I think he's maybe saying this can't happen next season. If I am not going into next season with this squad, maybe it is maybe the overall message we can probably take from his comments. I would think the bottom Duda. But big yourself up, my man. I really, really do appreciate the support. Everybody, make sure you do smash that like button, smash that subscribe button if you are new to the channel. We're about 50 odd away from reaching 6K. So maybe spread it. And guys, as well, feel free to like the button, to get your super chats in with your thoughts, your opinions. But don't worry, we know not everybody's in a position to be able to do it out there. So get your comments in, get your player ratings in as we're giving them, and we'll get them up on screen as we go along. We want to try and include everybody here as best as we can. So look, Jack, let's take it away, my man.
Let's take it away. But as Old Soul says, while you're in here, everybody do hit that like button while people are piling in. Larice, Dave, I've given a 6. You've given a 5. Probably not too much to really discuss here. Maybe I think you'll discuss it, so I don't want to take your talking points, but I think you're about to maybe discuss he could be a bit more aggressive in certain situations.
Yeah.
I don't remember him really being too poor or great on the ball. I don't remember his distribution being, poor or fantastic. Kind of just an average performance, I would say, from Lloris, and the goal that actually did go in the back of the net, I would say he definitely had nothing to do with. So what are your thoughts, though, Dave? Why is it a 5 maybe instead of a 6?
Do you know why I say it's a 5, Jack? For me, right? Look, we all know where Burnley were going to pose their problems, and we'll get onto that a bit further on. But the amount of crosses, the crosses that were coming in was where Burnley got his best chances, whether it was from set pieces, a corner kick, or crosses from out wide. Now, we know we're not playing with the biggest centre halves. We know how big Weghorst is. We know how big some of the Burnley players are. And I just felt that maybe Hugo Lloris could have came out and been more commanding of his area and helped them out in some of these set-piece situations rather than be rooted to the line. And we watched back the highlights, Jack, and some of them were in and around kind of in areas where he could have come off his line to come out and maybe claim, maybe punch away, just help us out a little bit. And he didn't. And the same thing just kept on persisting where they were getting heads on it and testing us. Don't get me wrong. I actually thought he made a couple of decent saves yesterday. There was one or two good saves that he made. But it's not enough. You can't keep staying on your line. Against these bigger teams where they're bullying us from aerially, anything that comes into that box, he has to come out and help and command it more. And I just felt he didn't do that yesterday.
Yeah, I think that's a convincing argument. And it seems like a lot of the chat, is going for 5. I will tell you, a lot of the chat just seems to be in the mood of giving a much lower ratings, it feels like probably today, which I certainly don't blame them. But I think a 5 is plenty fair. We will move on, though, to Romero. Dave, 4s, from both of us. Everybody, if you do kind of look at the goal that we concede, if you really just look at it from all angles, it's Romero's man. Ben Mee, it's Romero's man. He's at the back post. Romero doesn't seem to know that he's behind him. Even if he does, he doesn't handle it well. He also, when the ball's hit to the back post, Romero is caught a bit off balance, and Ben Mee is able to kind of take away or take his, off balance sort of, kind of jump to his advantage. So Ben Mee not only kind of loses him, but as well is able to just out jump him. And Romero's usually considered one of our best ball winners, Dave, especially when the ball is in the air, usually really good at clearing it, but loses his marker if he even knew it was there. And that's being kind to him if he even knew the guy was there at the back post. And the other thing as well, Dave, there were a few times when Ben Mee was at Romero's back post, and Romero just didn't seem to know what to do with it. And you could also just say his set piece defending really just was poor that game, really poor set piece defending. And another thing I'll quickly touch on, Dave, is the fact that I feel like he kept making those runs going forward. I kept saying, it was like some sort of, I don't know, like Mats Hummels, like Sergio Ramos kind of thing, just making like runs forward, to join the attack. I see the idea, but it wasn't really helping us either. There were moments when it felt like he wasn't even helping us by doing that. And yeah, just not a great performance for Romero, and probably one of the first defensive mistakes we've seen him make all season.
Look, let me be clear. I see some people are saying it's harsh. I can understand what you're saying. Look, we're not putting this solely on Romero, but look, you have to call him out where he was bad. He was bad yesterday. I mean, set pieces, you look at the Burnley goal, okay, I get it. He was running back towards his own goal. The momentum was with Ben Mee. He was always going to get above him. But Romero didn't even know where Ben Mee was. And that was the biggest problem. He couldn't touch him. He couldn't put his arm out and feel him. He didn't know where he was. And what actually happened is that Ben Mee had that much space. He had the time and space to be able to get the leap on him. But if Romero was with him, touch tight, and knew where he was, he might not have got that leap. Or even if he did get that leap, he would not have got as strong as a header on the ball. Because Romero was with him all that way. Romero was jumping with him. But because Romero couldn't touch him, Romero was jumping up. And then Ben Mee's coming in with the momentum and crashing into him and getting that header. So for me, I thought that was poor. I actually thought Romero was poor enough on the ball yesterday. I remember loads of times in the first half, he gave it away with poor passes. Again, before that goal, Burnley had another set piece, the opposite side. Again, Romero was in charge of picking up Ben Mee, completely lost him. The warning was there. They also had a corner kick, Jack. Who was in charge of the player that won the header off that corner kick? Romero, completely lost him. From set pieces, he was an absolute nightmare yesterday. And in games against Burnley, you have to be on the ball from set pieces. It's their bread and butter. You have to be switched on. He wasn't. He was completely switched off from every single set piece situation yesterday. And ultimately, it is where the goal came from. And ultimately, the goal is his fault because he wasn't touch tight to Ben Mee. He let him run off the back of him. He didn't know where he was. If he was touch tight, he would have stopped the goal. And as well, a lot of the times, he was playing up front there for a good while in spells of each half where he's up there beside Kane and Son. And yeah, it's good. It's funny. But, I mean, all you're doing is kind of crowding up the space for them guys up there. Just get back and do what you're good at, getting the ball to the players to make things happen. I just thought all around he was a bit off yesterday, to be honest.
Yeah, just a bit off. And like we said, everybody, perhaps his first sort of defensive mistake maybe this season, which just says so much about the absolute animal and the absolute, just impressive defender he's been for us this season. So it's just a poor performance. You just have to be objective. It's just a poor performance from the guy. Moving on to Eric Dyer. Yeah, sorry, Dave.
Just to add on, look, by no means are me and Jack pulling Romero apart. This is a player ratings based on the one game we watched yesterday. Not over the course of the season. We know he's a young guy. We're not getting on his back. But this is based on what we saw on the game yesterday. One game.
Yeah, correct, Dave. Thank you for clearing that up. Eric Dyer for this one, 6. Maybe you could go for a 5 because it's not like he did anything to maybe shine, I feel like, in this match, but he certainly didn't do anything wrong. He kind of, again, maybe flew under the radar. And I think I said this before, Dave, flew under the radar in maybe the best sort of way, in kind of the good sense of the word. I feel like got rid of danger at good moments, decent in possession, a good leader for us, but I don't know. I think a 5 I'm kind of maybe more leaning towards, but we've both given 6s. Maybe you could give reasons for that. Or do you feel like maybe a 5 is a bit better? I'm starting to think like it's not like he did anything to really shine and it still was 1-0. So maybe a 5.
Look, defensively, I don't think he made any mistakes, and that's what we should be judging a defender on first and
Fair,
foremost.
fair.
I thought he was actually our best out of the back three yesterday, if I'm honest, in terms of defensively. Going forward, there was a couple of nice passes, a couple of long-range passes he did make, to be fair. And look, I think a 6 is overall. Did he do enough affecting the game going forward? Probably not, but that's not what he's in the team to do. Did he make any mistakes defensively? My opinion, no, not really. So that's why I've come to the conclusion of giving him a 6.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you. I love what Eddie Gonzalez says here. Romero's top notch and will get better, but yesterday was not his best game. That's exactly what our rating was. That's exactly what our rating reflected.
You should have just said that. We could have moved on.
No, this is what I'm saying. The power of the Harris Army to just say something so much cleaner and more efficient than us, Dave. But Ben Davies here, Dave. I've given him a 6. You've given him a 5, and I think this will be more of a. This is maybe one where I don't know if we need to spend a lot of time on it.
I'll go first on this because mine is literally just 1 point that I've deducted.
Yeah, sure. No, go ahead. Yeah.
Now I'm going to let you talking about his passes out, and I'm not ignoring them. And
yeah, you go first. I keep going first. Yeah.
No, I'm going to let you talk about his passes out because I don't want to take that off you. You make very good points when it comes to that. The reason why I've given him a 5, Jack, is there's at one stage they had the ball out the left-hand side. And they got across him. And I know Jay Rodriguez was offside, and it ended up being called offside. But he was in an offside position anyway. And what Davies done is he actually dropped back and broke that line, that solid line we had. And if he does that against a better team or does that again, eventually he's going to end up playing that defender onside where he doesn't need to do it. But we've seen this from Davies before. Take yourself back to games last season where we've seen him, most notably the one where we got bet by Liverpool at home. He was dropping back, not holding the line. And I just don't want them old ways to creep back in. And that's why I've given him a 5.
Yeah, maybe quickly, Dave, would you say he was the best defender of the 3 maybe that day?
Last night.
That day, yeah, sorry. That's what I said.
No, I thought Dyer was the best defensively. Maybe playing out from the back. Maybe playing out from the back is a different story. Maybe yes, to be fair. But
I'm with you, actually.
The reason why I've given him a 5 is because I don't like the way he broke that line.
No,
he could have easily played Rodriguez onside. It's like you're just causing trouble where you don't need to be. And I've just seen this. I've seen this from Davies last season. And I just don't want him to go back into his own ways.
No, and if you kind of feel like maybe he was the second best defender that day, then I think your rating, honestly reflects that. And I think that's actually quite, accurate, to be fair. I can't argue with it. The reason I've given him a 6, I've given him the same rating as Dyer, is because maybe Dyer was a bit better defensively. I think I can't argue with that. What I kind of liked about Davies was it felt like, Dave, that was a game where you needed somebody, and we keep saying it, somebody to make a pass that was a bit brave. Somebody to make a pass that, you were okay with losing it. You're not Harry Winks, you're afraid, it's not going to stat pad you, sort of pass. You have to make passes that, can actually shift the Burnley line, actually make them think, actually make them kind of sweat a bit. And it felt like Ben Davies was actually doing that lots of times. He's carrying the ball forward, and trying to maybe find areas. He even made a few runs forward in occasions, which we haven't seen in a while. It's been a while since I've seen him make runs forward again. He played a couple of pinged passes all the way to Emerson, all the way to Kulusevski again. He's been doing that quite recently, and he's doing them to some success, I must say. I thought he was the best passer of the center backs, and actually, to a degree, created some chances from his passes as well. And even at one stage, Emerson set him up for a chance in the box, Dave, and he, shot it near post. And Nick Pope, in fact, even, had to make a pretty clever save from it as well. So I actually thought Ben Davies played all right. I actually think he didn't really do anything that made me really want to criticize him too much. And in fact, going forward, I thought he was the best center back going forward. And it's kind of crazy to say that, considering Romero was certainly trying to do a whole lot more than him going forward. But I actually thought Ben Davies did a lot more or at least was more successful with, trying to create things. So a good day for him going forward. Maybe defensively, nowhere near as good as Dyer. I agree with that.
No, 100%. I agree with you with playing out from the back. He was our best defender playing out from the back. I just hopefully that these Spurs players see this and that, he takes note of what I said there. That don't break that line again. Yeah, that's all.
Moving on. Sessegnon here. We've given Sessegnon 4s, everybody. And the reason being is again, just poor on the ball. It's something I've noticed from him quite recently. The past few games that he's played is he's very good defensively and seems to not make any mistakes defensively. Doesn't seem to switch off, seems to be able to marshal really good players well. But again, Dave, I would say he's often given the not as tough of an assignment as Emerson, you would say. In the Man City game, wasn't targeted as much. Sessegnon, he didn't have like a true player he had to come up against all the time. Whereas, Emerson had to come up with Joao Cancelo as well as Sterling and other players, and Gundogan coming over to his area, where Sessegnon didn't have to do as much in Man City. And you could say the same thing with Burnley, Dave, where Emerson had to deal with Dwight McNeil, who you could say was probably their best player that day because he was just floating everywhere for that Burnley team. And Sessegnon, I just felt like, Dave, he didn't have as tough of an assignment, and also going forward just wasn't doing nearly as much as I felt like Emerson was on the other side. And in fact, Sessegnon had a few poor touches, was playing backwards a lot, just didn't seem to be that flying sort of wingback that I thought we kind of bought from Fulham originally. And I'm a bit worried, Dave, because for me, he looks really clunky going forward. And I know this sounds ridiculous, everybody, but I would say sometimes he even looks clunkier going forward than even Emerson does.
Yeah, look, I think we all knew coming into this game that defensively solid. Put him out there against the big teams. The big question was, can he do it now going forward? And like you said, Jack, he didn't have nowhere near as much to deal with coming down that side. But yet he did get an awful lot of the ball down that side going forward. And at times you're just looking at him. The ball's
just
being
nothing
passed
going
out
forward.
here. Open up your body, one touch, get it into the box. Didn't do it. Slowed it down, played it back inside. Very, very slow, lethargic on the ball. Then at other times, you're looking at him, he's on the ball. You're like, okay, skin your man, make something happen. You run at them, be a bit direct. You've loads of room there, and then get a cross in or something like that. He just did not want to do it. He was just passing on the responsibility to somebody else. Now, look, that could come down to maybe a confidence issue or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, I don't care. It's games like that where you have to try them things to be able to prove to fans, managers, coaches that you can do it going forward. I can accept someone trying, but to not try whatsoever and take the easy cop out every single time, it's disappointing. And even when we go one down, there was a lovely ball played out to him, one touch, open up your body, one touch, get it out of the feet, whipping in. He didn't do it. He just completely slowed it down. You can't afford to do that against Burnley, because what I was doing, Jack, when he's recycling the ball like that, it's just allowing Burnley to get back into their shape and get everybody back into their shape. So it's just, it's not good enough in my opinion. Look, don't get me wrong, he's a young lad, but at the same time, it's only him that can.
He costs more than Emerson, though. This is like another thing that we have to also come to terms with, Dave. He costs more than Emerson did. They're close to the same age, if I believe, Dave, as well.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I think he actually gave away the free kick for that goal as well, I think, Jack.
It was on that side. It came from the right hand, or Burnley's right-hand side, our left-hand side. So it came from our left-hand side. You might be right there, Dave. But maybe just quickly, the last little thing I would say, Dave, is when you say what's also interesting is he's dealt with not as difficult of assignments as well, like defensively. So you would think that, I know he's solid defensively, Dave, but like that means he could have more license to go forward. That means he should maybe be getting on the ball more and trying to make things happen, because against Burnley, they barely had any wingers available that day. And Aaron Lennon, who sort of is in form, was coming up against him, but I could say didn't really do very much. And it was like, Emerson came up against Dwight McNeil, their best player, you might say, apart from like maybe Weghorst or whatever. But as well, Dave, the same thing with Man City. He came up against like Foden and Mahrez like occasionally, but Kyle Walker was never really making runs forward. So I would just say what's concerning is Sessegnon looks good defensively, but going forward, you would say it's actually weirdly a lot to be desired. And I don't think we've actually said that before. And we say that all the time. We say it all the time with Emerson, but we don't really ever say it with Sessegnon.
Yeah, no, 100%. You're absolutely spot on. And just to add to that, I mean, yesterday was a game where you wanted to see something out of him going forward. We all knew that he'd get time and space out there. We're even saying that at halftime, Jack. The amount of ball that he's getting out there at left back, coming up, start doing something with it. Open up your body, start doing something with it. And he just did not want to do it. He just refused all game. And for me, You can't have that. If you want to be a Spurs player, you've got to take risks. You've got to get yourself more involved in the game. You've got to try things going forward to get fans out of their seat. You've got to create things, and it just looks like he doesn't want to do it, and nobody really wants to criticize him for it either. I get people criticizing Emerson in terms of going forward. Sometimes I can understand that. But we can't judge Sessegnon and Emerson as the same, because Emerson had more of an effect on the game than what Sessegnon did yesterday. Sessegnon had zero effect going forward whatsoever. Yeah. But no one really wants to get onto the guy's back about it.
Yeah, I'm completely with you. And I think this will be interesting. And we'll see how people respond to it, Dave. We'll see how people respond to it. But all I can say is, everybody, go back. If you want to put yourself through the pain.
Take it down, take it off screen.
If you want to go back and put yourself through the pain, everybody, if you really want to put yourself through the pain, I would say rewatch that first half, especially from Emerson. Emerson was by far one of the better players actually on the pitch in the first half. And in fact, Dave, just to prove the stats, maybe just for our seeing eye test, Dave, from our seeing eye test and what we saw, he, in fact, Dave, was tied for the second most chances created, the second most shot creating actions actually that day. So he had 4 shot creating actions. Sonny had the most with 5. Emerson also was tied for the second highest expected assists that day. He also had some of the most progressive passes. He actually, in fact, had the most progressive passes completed that day, Dave. And in fact, was, I would say, a lot more involved going forward than Sessegnon was. Didn't really make any errors defensively that I can recall, Dave. Maybe a few times, and he had to deal with Dwight McNeil, who was just everywhere, Dave. He was drifting across the middle. He would then show up on Emerson's side. It was really difficult, I must say, an assignment. It was just going forward a lot more than Sessegnon. And like I said, everybody, second most chances created, and as well as the second most progressive passes. I think he gave the ball away probably a few times, but I don't know, Dave. Like, I think he actually didn't play as bad as people want to say he did. That's all I'm going to make the argument. I could make the argument for a 5. I think a 5 is probably a bit more fair maybe for Emerson. But if people want to say he had a ridiculously poor game, then I think they're going to have to rewatch that first half, to be honest.
A lot of people think he was awful yesterday.
I know, and I think that's just the agenda. I think that's just the agenda coming through.
There's so much out there about Emerson, and it feels like people have already made their mind up on him. And no matter what he does here now going forward, that people will not give him any sort of credit for yesterday. And look, Jack, I was on the phone to you, and I was saying about this guy. I was saying,
second most chances created, Dave. Second most chances created.
Look, I'm going to get onto that in a minute. But what I was saying about this guy to you, Jack, was, is it a coincidence every team targets our right-hand side? But also, is it a coincidence that a lot of our play comes down the right-hand side and he is always involved, whether it's going forward or defensively? Is it him getting in, it can't be a coincidence that he's involved in a lot of our play going forward and defensively. That, because when people talk about Emerson, they talk about him going forward, they talk about him defensively, and it's like, but that's what you want from your wing back. You want him being involved in both sides of the game. Now, I get it. You look at some of the quality in the final third. I can understand it. But the fact is, he's getting involved in the game. And that's one thing you got to give the guy credit for. He wants to get involved in the game himself. He's constantly involved in the game. You look out the left-hand side yesterday, not too much came from there. But we created opportunities from that right-hand side. In fact, there was at one stage Harry Kane gave the ball away. Emerson won it back. Harry Kane went on and had his shot and just went wide. The amount of crosses, or if balls did come in towards the back post, Emerson was there putting them back across the goal yesterday, putting them into danger. He set Højbjerg up for a chance yesterday inside the box. There's another one. He passed inside to Kulu when he could have wrapped his foot around it and crossed it. Kulu got a shot off and stuff like that. So I actually do think he actually was by nowhere near the worst player on the pitch yesterday. I actually thought he had a decent game yesterday. I think what people are pissed off about is the time he cut in to have a shot.
Yeah, I think that's what people are pissed off about.
I do not mind that. And let me tell you why. Because so much people have been on his back. He's shit, he's this, he's that. Rather than hide and shirk responsibility like Sessegnon did, which everyone is giving out about Sessegnon not trying to make something happen, at least Emerson cut in to try and make something happen. And like I said, I can accept someone trying. Now, whether they're good enough going forward to be able to win trophies and Champions Leagues, that's a different story altogether. But where we're at right now, I can take him trying to continually do the right things, and he had an effect yesterday going forward. Go back and watch the highlights. Compared to
watch the highlights, rewatch the game, watch the highlights, and look at the stats. You have a seeing eye test and the stats to work with it. I get the Emerson agenda. In fact, David, we see where people are coming from on the Emerson agenda. But if you rewatch that one, he did create, in fact, a few chances, and even created more chances than some of our midfielders and even some of our wingers, Dave, that day. So I just feel like there are days when you can jump on the Emerson, bandwagon of hating him. And then there's some days where you just kind of have to realize, it wasn't his worst game. And I think that's just what it is. And it's almost similar to the Romero thing. You're just judging him on the one game, And if you're judging him on just that one game, he was by far, like David said, nowhere near the worst player on the pitch out there. In fact, was probably closer to one of the better players on the pitch at that time.
But Jack, you look at the game, you look at the stats. He affected the game going forward.
Yeah.
And that's what people want from this guy, correct? That's what they're digging out about this guy.
Yeah, that's what they dig out on him for. And he, in fact, actually had more of an effect on the game going forward than probably you could say the majority of the team. So there you are, everybody.
I think King Hoddle sums this up beautifully. Emerson is consistently heavily involved in our play, despite his shortcomings.
Yeah. And what else do you expect from him at the end? Because this is sometimes what we say about Matt Doherty, Dave, is Matt Doherty, he's maybe better in those situations, but he almost rarely gets involved. It's kind of our question, where with Emerson, he's always seems to be involved and he's good defensively. But I feel like, Dave, sometimes, like I always say, we defend him like a prime Ledley King, you and I at times. But we're just going to move on to Bentancur. His 45 minutes of play, Dave, I gave him a 6, maybe a 5, but he actually played, I thought, decently. Seemed to try to do some things going forward, tried to carry the ball, good in possession. I don't really think there's a lot that you can point to that he did wrong. I don't think there's a lot you can point to that he maybe did exceptionally well. I think we all would have wanted to see 45 more minutes of him to really make a better judgment. But by the looks of it, Dave, he was getting into the flow of things, getting into the motion of things, and wasn't really playing too poorly. But I don't think we need to spend a lot of time on it. But Dave, I thought we were better looking in the first half. Maybe that's how you compare it. If you compare it to him and Winks' performance, since they both got 45 minutes, I thought we looked a lot better in the first half than we did in the second half. And maybe that is partially due to Bentancur.
In terms of controlling the game, we looked a lot better in the first half than what we did second half. Look, we didn't exactly create a load of chances. But like the way we were playing in the first half, if we continued that into the second half, we would have eventually brought them down without them having any chances. Once you took him out, we lost complete control of the game. It started going end to end, which then gives Burnley a bit of belief. Their tails get up. They went and got their 1-0 snatch and grab, which is what they're hoping for. For a team like Tottenham to looking to get a result against Burnley, you can't allow them breakaway chances. You can't allow the game to go end to end. You have to be in control of the ball. And when he came off, we just weren't in control of the game, in my opinion. This is only my opinion. Yeah, we can look at it and say, second half, maybe we create more chances. But Burnley also created a lot more chances, and they ended up winning the game because they could create the better chances. A game like Burnley, you need to be in control of the ball, be consistent, be persistent, and you will break them down eventually. And for me, once he came off, you could see what we were lacking. Someone that can control that game, someone that we've been crying out for all season long. And when he went off, we lost control of that game. And look, you look at Winks, he's the man to come in and continue that on there like for like. And he just failed to do it. For me, he picked up the injury, Jack, but he was still doing the right thing. He was getting the ball, maybe his passes weren't the most adventurous at times, but he keeps the ball moving, Jack. He keeps it moving in their half. He can get us from defense up to attack as well. He constantly keeps us in control of the possession. He goes looking for the ball. Winks didn't do that yesterday when he came on, and that's where I think we lost the game. But you can't help it. The guy's injured. What can you do?
Yeah, I'm with you, Dave. Højbjerg here, Dave. We've given 6s. Højbjerg that day, Dave, had the most tackles and interceptions combined He's been doing that quite recently. So most tackles and interceptions combined, I believe, was up there. Had the second most progressive carries in the entire team as well, Dave, which is a good stat. So it showed he carried the ball forward a lot more than anybody else. He actually carried the ball forward, Dave, as many times as Sonny and Harry Kane and Kulusevski did that day. Which actually speaks a lot, maybe to his day. He as well had the second most players dribbled past. And also, like we said, Dave had a good day defensively, won the ball back for us in really crucial moments. Just didn't really put a foot wrong. I'm just going to look quickly to see how many times he gave the ball away. Let's just see. But Dave, I mean, maybe you can take it away, but just quickly, yeah, quite far down there. I think he had one pass intercepted. So Dave, actually a very good day for Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, and he gets a 6, I think.
Yeah, look, again, I think he's another one of these players that no matter what he does, people are always going to have their gripes about him. But I think the people that have their gripes about him are the people that expect him to play like Glenn Hoddle when it's not what he was brought in to do. You look at his performance yesterday, I thought he got stuck in well. I thought he looked after the ball decently enough, to be fair. Look, we all know he's not the best passer, but it's not why he's in the team. I thought he carried the ball well. At times, Jack, he was overloading into the box. So fair play to him for that. He's getting forward. Also, how many times then when we did get the ball into the box and we couldn't do anything with it, did this guy recycle it? Loads of times. And then he also won ball deep in our half. I thought, over the course of the game, I thought he had a good game yesterday. Look, if you're looking for a Højbjerg to be your match winner, that's where you get disappointed with this guy. But if you're looking for a guy to be able to go and win the ball when you lose it and give it to other people to make stuff happen when you win it, then that's where you realize what this guy does and how effectual he can be on the game.
Yeah, absolutely, Dave. Absolutely. Move on. Keep plowing on. Kulusevski here. I've given him a 6. David's given him a 7. In fact, Dave, he combined really well with Emerson in the first half. They were actually doing some really good movement where Emerson just kept, kind of playing that inside sort of pass on the floor to him in really good spots. Kulusevski had a few chances created, I must say. Like, I played some things for Harry Kane, played some things for Sonny, played a decent ball in at the back post at one stage. He really likes that kind of dink kind of pass into the back post. I thought he played quite well. I don't think he played poor by any means. I've given him a 6. You've given him a 7. What makes him a 7, though, Dave? I mean, still considering the loss and everything, what makes it a 7?
Do you know what? I know we lost, but I was looking at it. Although we lost, Kane, Son, and Kulu were at the heart of any good things we did do yesterday going forward.
Yeah.
Look, Kulu, he got that pass from Son. He cut in, nearly bended it into the far corner for a goal. When we were crying out for some crosses to be put in, Kulu would put them in. But it's not only that, Jack. It's when he gets the ball and how he uses it. He very, very rarely gives it away.
Yeah.
And that's why I've given him a 7. Look, I get the result is disappointing. But he still continued on where he left off from City. Just it was a lot tighter space to play in. So when the game is open, you're always going to look better. But even though the game was tight yesterday, he's still done the right thing on the ball 9 times out of 10. He still had an effect on the game going forward, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think he did do plenty on the ball. Maybe it's kind of been unseen, and it's good to see that he can play well against Man City and play decently against Burnley, 2 very different teams to come up against. Al Ben saying a business acting like a big club, buying shites from the bigger clubs because of their age with hope. If they come good, then the club stocks rises. This is the thing. If the club is run like a business, it makes complete sense that we buy younger players because there's only bigger profit to be taken from it. If you buy younger players, like if you try to treat the club kind of like an Ajax or a Dortmund to a degree with buying young, talented players, it means you can make profit on it at any certain moment when you do want to sell them at any certain moment. So you know that you always get your investment back. And any business, they always want to get their investment for any single, type of, they just want to get their returns back after any sort of investment they make in the club. So Al, it's not a big surprise. It's a depressing sort of realization that we do have to come to maybe when it comes to how Levy operates, but I see where you're coming from, my man. I see where you're coming from.
I can get the frustrations yesterday, but just because we lost, it doesn't mean that Bentancur and Kulusevski are all of a sudden crap. They were influential against Man City. They were influential to that win. Kulusevski, 1 goal, and then that assist at the very last minute where he puts the ball in the box for Harry Kane. Just because he didn't score yesterday, or didn't have an assist and no one else scored yesterday, it doesn't all of a sudden make him a bad player. Well, look, I've always said, I believe we should be looking at players from like Juventus, Bayern Munich, clubs like that where players that have played there maybe have fallen out of the pecking order, maybe because of manager or whatever, go and get them. Because you can guarantee at their time in that club, they played some part in the team and they've won trophies. Maybe they're not good enough for Juve to do it every single week, or a club that does go out and spend big money. But for a club like Tottenham Hotspur, he's the right player, in my opinion. I think we actually got 2 good deals here this January.
I think we do too. I think everybody's starting to realize that. A lot of people are probably eating their words on that. But big up, Alban. Do appreciate the support, my man. Sonny, I've given him a 7. Dave's given him a 7 as well. I think both of our men of the matches, if I'm not mistaken, Dave. Sonny, he was excellent going forward. I thought in both halves. He created a few chances in the first half, but it felt like in the second half, what he was doing, Dave, is that he was doing exactly what we wanted that left-hand side to do, which was Sessegnon's side, which was to drive at a team. When you pick up the ball, to make things happen with your own 2 legs. Felt like Sonny had a lot of energy with the ball that day. Felt like he's becoming more creative even recently than he is kind of like more of a threat, kind of with shooting, Dave. He didn't even take a shot that day, which I think is actually quite interesting, but he actually created a lot of chances. I believe even created the most chances that day, if I'm not mistaken, Dave. So he had the most shot creating actions that day as well. I thought Sonny was probably the best forward that day. For you, Dave, I don't think it was by a huge margin that you think he was the best forward, but I think that's maybe all we have to say is I thought Sonny, in fact, and especially in the second half, was pretty decent going forward and tried to make a lot happen. And I think we can say that he could probably, to a degree, fall in that category of players that maybe can hold their head up high despite the result.
No, look, first of all, I need to say this before I talk about Sonny. When it comes to all 3 forward players yesterday, if you go back and look at the game, you go back and watch any highlights you want, all 3 of them had an effect on yesterday's game in forward areas. But in tight games like that, you also need your midfielders, your fullbacks to help you out in the attacking areas. You need to be able to trust them. Once you've got the ball up the field, get it out to them. They find your runs in behind. They put balls into the box for you to go and attack. And they didn't get any help from anyone behind them. It's difficult to ask 3 men to break down 2 blocks of 4, which is 8 people in front of them, sometimes 9 plus the goalkeeper. It's very hard to ask 3 players to break that down. You have to be able to rely on other players. And at times I felt sorry for them, Jack. We're sitting there all throughout the game. Okay, Burnley's after breaking. Take the ball off them. We slow it down. We're letting them get everybody behind the ball. When you take the ball off a team like Burnley, you know what they want to do is get back into shape. Get your ball quickly to the front guys. 3 of them are world class. Get the ball to them and let them work in the space. A lot of the space they had to operate, a lot of where they were operating yesterday, there was no room for them to operate. And that's for me where I think the lack of goals yesterday or the lack of proper chances we created falls on people behind them. In terms of what and we'll talk about Sonny now, in terms of what Son done yesterday, he created Kulu's chance, which was a good chance. And he was direct on the ball. He picked up the ball. He was running at players. He was putting balls into the box. He put a lovely one in from a free kick, where we nearly scored from. And I actually thought Son had a pretty good game yesterday. And for me, my man of the match, I think he was probably the best player on the park. Was he miles better than Kane and Kulu? I don't believe so. But I do think he was the better out of the front 3, but not miles better. And for me, I think a 7 is fair. Again, I don't put this on him. Yes, I think he was doing all the right things. I think he does what he usually does. But you also need other people to help you when teams are sitting back tight,
Yeah, I'm with you. Harry Kane, I've given a 6. You've given a 7. I think that argument you just made about Sonny kind of probably reflects why you maybe have given them all kind of more or less the same rating, is because they all kind of created their own chances and they didn't really play. Any of them really didn't play that poorly. Harry Kane, I've given a 6. Mostly because I think there are a few times, Dave, where maybe he was, I don't know, this is tough. I mean, how can you criticize someone for this, especially if you're being a forward? felt like there are times when Harry Kane might have been trying to do a bit too much. I think he did have the most intercepted passes that day, but that also just has to do with him trying to, get things started and him trying to make things happen, which I don't know. I can't ever blame somebody for, but I think all your reasoning before, David, for, Sonny, I think probably does apply to Harry Kane here. I've given him a 6 just because I maybe wanted to make it obvious that I thought maybe Sonny had a slightly better game that day. But Harry Kane, I don't think really put many feet wrong. And in fact, actually had a few really good passes, Dave, that I thought led to an attack. He was kind of the pass to the assist, or the pass to the chance sort of guy that day. It wasn't as much him being at the end of chances. It was him leading, creating the facilities to make that chance actually happen in the first place sort of day for him. So I think it was still a decent performance from Harry Kane.
No, look, before I get on to Kane, I'm going to take this comment from one Tona. Says, David, big respect, because personally I appreciate the more down-to-earth, non-emotional, realistic analysis and opinions you give nowadays compared to when you started. So I like the growth. Well, look, my man, or man or woman, I'm not sure who it is, but look, I really actually do appreciate that, to be honest with you. I really do. I'm not sure whether it's for the worst or for the better. I'm not sure. But look, I just try my best. That's all. But I really do appreciate that comment. It is such a nice comment to because maybe what it does show, someone that tuned in early days didn't really like what was going on, but now we're tuning in and liking it. So it's a good comment. I love it. Big up. But look, let's get back to the big man. I can understand why people maybe think maybe he didn't have a good game yesterday.
Really, I wouldn't know I wouldn't understand that. But yeah.
First of all, we have to remember this guy came into yesterday off the back of a back injury. He was still carrying it into the game, right? But some of our best chances, he's the one that took the initiative to have that shot outside the box, that just dribbled wide of the post. He's also the one that went and won that header that rattled the crossbar. He's also the one that at times was dropping deep, picking up the ball, spraying passes. There was also a time where he was out on the left-hand side, picked up the ball, cut inside, and put one right in behind onto Emerson's feet. For me, if you're looking at, he didn't score, you can say, yes, okay, he had a bad game. But if you look at his all-around game yesterday, holding up the ball, playing players in, always being there for 1-2s, and his passing game, I actually thought he did have a good game yesterday. Again, he couldn't get, they weren't finding him, so he's dropping deep and finding them. We just did not score when he did create them sort of, like at times, Jack, why is he dropping deep and playing in Emerson? Now fair play to Emerson, he made the run, but why is it him playing Emerson in? It should be somebody else, not him. He should be in the box for Emerson to be able to cut it across the 6-yard box for him to tap in. But he's the one dropping deep to make it happen.
Yeah.
So for me, I actually think Harry Kane had a good game yesterday in terms of the all-around game. And like I said about all front players, they done what they usually do. They looked after the ball. They tried. They used the ball well, and they're at the center of anything we did do going forward. For me, when you're playing against a low block team, it's people behind you that have to help you out in these departments. You can't expect 3 men to take on 9, 10 people sat behind the ball. You need others. What you should be doing is being able to trust the others with the ball so that you can make them runs in behind, stretch them, and ask them the question going that way. But it didn't happen yesterday. And when it wasn't happening, you were seeing them then having to drop back and be the ones to be the creators and then looking to the ones to be the finishers. In games like Burnley, you need people behind you helping you out. You have to trust them that they can make them passes, so that you can do all the right things. And it just didn't work out like that yesterday, in my opinion.
No, it just didn't work out that day. I think that was well broken down, Dave. But we do move on here to Harry Winks. 4s. Listen, I don't think we need to cover too much of it. We talk about it, honestly, incessantly and too much at these days. But I think everybody can honestly say to themselves, we looked a lot better in the first half than we did in the second half. The major difference between the first half and the second half was a certain midfielder came on for a certain other midfielder, and Harry Winks came on, and I would say we looked a lot worse. You could even make the argument that Burnley, in fact, didn't really do anything in the first half. Burnley didn't really look very dangerous in the first half at all. It felt like they were just going to kind of sit tight and hope for maybe a 0-0 or something like that. But the moment that Harry Winks came on in the second half, all of a sudden it actually looked like Burnley, like, wow, they could actually get a chance here. They could actually score a goal here and actually get ahead. And it didn't feel that way in the first half at all. So I think that says a lot to do with maybe a certain midfielder in Harry Winks coming on. Burnley all of a sudden start playing better. We started playing worse. I think it's that simple. I don't think it all falls on him for that, but I think a large portion of it actually does. Let's be real. Didn't actually do anything going forward. In fact, I don't think he really created any chances whatsoever. Just want to make sure that he didn't, but maybe I could be wrong. Harry Winks had one shot creating action, one coming on, Dave, which is, again, just, I don't know, just not very impressive, to be fair, because he's supposed to be a creative midfielder coming onto the team, Dave. He's supposed to be playing passes that other people aren't. He's supposed to be able to progress the ball forward. Had 3 progressive carries. Didn't really want to carry the ball forward, Dave. I mean, I don't know, just a shocking performance from Harry Winks, Dave. And I think the pressure of battling with for spots with Højbjerg, Bentancur, and eventually Ollie Skip is going to get to him.
No, 100%. Look, when it comes to this guy, I see Kuva getting dug out for his cane rating. Come on, guys. Come on. Look, you can't... Look, I'm just going to address this quickly. I see people getting on to Kuva for his cane rating. At the end of the day, Kane was the one that rattled the crossbar from the header. Kane was the one that had that shot that just went wide of the post. If we didn't have them, we have no shots really on goal. You know what I mean? You can't discredit that, but you also can't credit how much he dropped deep to be able to put other people in, play some passes and stuff like that. You can't ignore them things. But look, we're on Harry Winks now. So look, when it comes to Harry Winks, look, he done that one good pass to Sessegnon. And I remember me, you, and Sean was sitting there and just like, finally, more of this now. And then it just didn't happen. You know, what really pissed me off is like, I'm putting myself into Winks' shoes, right? I was dropped against Man City. We get, if not the best result we've seen this season. And then I played against Wolves and Southampton. We lost. I'm starting to think I'm the problem. So then when I do get the nod at halftime against Burnley, I would want to be going out there trying absolutely everything possible to prove that I wasn't the problem, or to prove that, hang on, I'm nowhere near as bad as people are thinking I am. People thought I was the problem under Poch. They thought I was the problem under Jose. They thought I was a massive problem under Nuno. They thought I was a massive problem under Conte. It's up to me to go out there and prove them wrong. What was the first thing Harry Winks done? Get on the ball, slow it down, take 6-7 touches, wide looking at Ben Davies, and then decides to pass it. Now, we're playing against a team that sit low block, and they want you to play everything in front of them because all they have to do is shift from left to right. What they don't want is to be turned or be made run. So make them do it. Don't play into their hands. Don't play the game they want you to play, which is slow and lethargic. Pick up the ball. Play forward. Make things happen. He didn't want to do it. He just slowed it down most times. At any given opportunity, you can look at it and say, oh, the penalty, was it a penalty? No, it wasn't a penalty. He lost control of the ball. He went running after it, and he went down as soon as he felt a bit of contact. Okay, probably clever. I would take the risk in going down, see if he can nick the penalty. But it just wasn't a penalty. And for me, I just think, like I said, when the game came up, it went from end to end. There was no real control in the game. And the reason why that happens is because he just doesn't offer anything defensively. Bentancur does. And that's the biggest difference, in my opinion. And it was just a lack of urgency. Even when we were 1-0 down, getting on the ball, 5-yard pass here, grand, my job is done. I look good on the stats. I look like I've come on and affected the game. My job is done. But when you actually look at the game and what sort of player he's supposed to be, it's like you take out Bentancur, okay. You're not, okay. So Harry Winks now needs to be able to play through the lines, play out left, play out right. And I'm not talking sideways to Ben Davies or sideways to Marrero. I'm talking with a bit of whip out into Sessegnon, like he did that one time. A bit of whip out wide to Emerson. Progressive, really effective with the passing. He just does not want to do it. He does not want to do it. And for me, I think 4 is fair. I just think we lost the game in the second half. And who played the second half? But My feeling, I knew it. I knew it was going to happen at halftime. Once this guy comes on, the game is going to change. Burnley are going to get belief. We all know. And it just comes to the point where, okay, the goal wasn't his fault. I get that. But we can't overlook Zagreb. You can't overlook, Jack, the list that we done on this guy beforehand.
Yeah,
You
it's
cannot
3 pages long.
all them games that we have lost with this guy in. Pacos de Freire, first game of the season, pickpocketed Winks, went up and scored the goal. And it's just like, obviously, you look at Romero and you can say, yes, he cost us the game from the set piece. But he's the last line of defense, just like a bit like a goalkeeper. They're going to be more noticeable than anything else. But you have to look at when this guy plays. We just don't win. The last 4 games we've played, Wolves, Southampton, Man City, Burnley. The 3 we've lost, he's played minutes in. The 1 we've won, he didn't touch the fucking pitch.
Yep. Wow. That's the bar in itself. Moondog saying not 4 for Winks. Bloody crap, mate. I give him 1. Maybe after what Dave just said, probably Moondog, if you took all that into consideration, we haven't won a game with him on the pitch in quite a considerable amount of time. We have not won the game when he has touched the pitch. So probably a 1 is more granted, but big up Moondog. Do really appreciate it. We are going to keep moving on though. To Bergvine here. Bergvine, I feel like, I don't know, if I want him to start a game, I want him to like just prove me either wrong or right again. Dave, I want the guy to actually get some minutes. I don't think we need to touch too much on him, to be honest. I thought he had, like he always does, Dave, I think he finds himself in the right positions, which is kind of funny about Bergvine. He seems to put himself in good positions, doesn't really do a lot with it from time to time, especially he had 1 decent chance actually inside the box that he probably could have done a bit better with, but we're probably not surprised that he didn't do a lot with it. But Bergvine, I will say, Dave, I do want to see him used more than Lucas, because I feel like Bergvine deserves it more than Lucas, and in fact seems to maybe do a lot more when he comes on than Lucas has been recently. So I don't think we need to touch too much, though.
No, I actually just wanted to come in on that point. I would say from the Leicester game onwards, you look at Bergvine and Lucas, who's had more of an impact. Bergvine over the course of the season, you could say Lucas, but since the Leicester game, Lucas has been absolutely poor. He's been absolutely shocking. Whereas Bergvine has come on and he's looked more lively than Lucas. Even last night, at least he got a shot off on target, may I add, because Lucas got one off and just went over the bar. He got a shot off on target, and he actually tried to affect the game a lot more than what Lucas did. Lucas was anonymous when he came on, and for me, I think, look, he came on, he tried, but the game was already ruined by then. Not much you can ask him to really do. I think 5 is fair, to be honest with you. Did he have enough time to affect the game? Probably not.
Yeah. Moving on to Lucas here. Lucas, I would give a 4. Just Dave continuing not to show anything coming off the bench. Seems to be a bit lethargic coming off the bench because he's known as being such an energetic, sort of wiry guy when coming off the bench. And he's not really showing that for me. He's also just not really putting in real sprints or anything. Like, when is the last time you really see Lucas even sprint? He seems to be kind of just jogging all over the pitch. I can't tell if he's like been, maybe Conte's not rubbing him off the right way or, something. I don't know, Dave. I just don't know what's happening with Lucas. He's just seeing a big dip in form and he's not really doing very much. And as well, Dave, that one chance that you were speaking about, if you actually think about it, he should have done a lot better with that. That was a good chance, especially to maybe, right all the wrongs or maybe, get rid of all the bad form. All he had to do is just smack that into the floor, Dave, and at least would have been a good shot on target or maybe even a goal. And he wasted that. He also wasted that opportunity. So I think a 4 is actually quite fair.
You're spot on there. Hit that one down into ground, use the rain, that will skid off the surface and that will fly into the net. 100%. Anyone that's played football and has played in the pissing rain like that, hit that down into the ground, or once the ground is wet, that ball is going to zip. It is going to move quickly unless it's like bogged down, but it wasn't bogged down. He just didn't do that. But not only that though, Jack, what the very first thing Lucas done when he came on, we had a great pass into midfield. There was Lucas, there was Son, there was Kane. And there was like 3 of them
jogging right next to Son.
Right? Yeah. No, but the pass came to Lucas. And you're like, okay, you're in acres of space. Control that ball turn. His control was that bad, it went back to where the pass came from. And there wasn't even that much weight on the pass. That's how bad his control was. That's shocking. With the amount of space he's in, like, even if you have a really bad, like, even if you have a bad touch, with the space he was in, you're always going to get back onto that ball. But it was actually that bad, it went straight back to where the pass came from. That's shocking. But then also another time, one of the balls where Hugo Lloris made a great save from it, but it was whipped in. Lucas was closest to the guy. You're only on the pitch. Sprint out to him and block that cross. He didn't do it. He made a half-ass attempt to get out there. So that's three things I've already spoke about with this guy. Come on, he didn't affect the game one bit, not positively at all. And he didn't want to either, and that's the most concerning thing.
No, I think that is the most concerning thing. Spot on, Dave. Well, that, everybody, is the end of the player ratings. Just had to get done, had to get stuck in and just do it. It's not the most enjoyable one. I figured, we said to Dave, it's not one we really wanted to do, to be fair, but, we want to continue the tradition and we want to make sure that, the content is still there for you guys. Yeah. And, it's not something really to complain about, really doing. At the end of the day, it does, allow us to kind of, wipe our hands clean to a degree, somewhat of that result, kind of wrap it up, maybe finish everything that we maybe was on our minds in terms of the performances and whatnot. But that'll be all for now for player ratings. Do stay tuned later for Knicky Answer Me, everybody. We're going to be breaking down everything Conte had to say after the game, every single word. We're going to break down a lot of the key quotes that came about, and as well with those sort of words from his. We're also going to kind of see what that means, whether it's just hot air, what it means for the players, what it means for Enoch and Levy, all these sort of things that you guys have been talking about, especially in the chat at a certain extent. So do stay tuned for Knicky Answer Me tonight at 9:30, where we'll be diving into everything Antonio Conte.
Do you know what? I just want to say I actually needed this show today, to be honest, because I was still so upset and deflated from last night, and I actually needed this show. So thank you to you, Jack, for pushing me to do it. Thank you to the Harris Army out there for tuning in and, just having the therapy we always have here. So, look, I really appreciate it. Look, I know not everybody's going to agree with our player ratings, but that's why it's only our ratings, but we want to know yours. So get in the comment section below. Let us know your ratings, see where they differ, and let us know your opinion why. And it'd be absolutely brilliant. Everybody, make sure you do smash that like button. Make sure you do smash that subscribe button. A massive thank you to people for tuning in today. A massive thank you for people who has helped support the channel with super chats financially. It's a massive appreciation. A massive thank you for the people who can't do it but still come in here and put in comments and everything else, which is what we want from them. I absolutely love that. And like we said, get your comments in underneath. See you back here at 9:30, where we will be breaking down the Conte interview from yesterday and giving our thoughts on it. As always, pick yourself up, dust yourself down. Leagues were coming. Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs, everybody.